It all started with this post with Colin Walker, Vicky Edmonds, Tanya Sinclair's photograph coming up on my LinkedIn timeline. So, in closing and summary, the EVA conned me out of £10. If they'll stoop to such lengths just to get £10 off me, imagine what lengths they'd stoop to get you to buy an EV. Don't bear thinking about, does it? And of course, the next thing was, it says EV misinformation. Confidence in electric vehicles is growing with more drivers making the switch each year, but misinformation still holds many people back, shaping public opinion and influencing policy in ways that don't reflect real-world experience. That's why we're launching a new EVA England member workshop series starting next Friday, with a session focused on tackling EV misinformation, which I thought, well, this is going to be good with Colin speaking. So, you know, it kind of got my attention. This member-only session will bring together insights from Tanya Sinclair, Electric Vehicles UK, and Colin Walker, the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, with practical discussion equipping participants with tools and approaches they can use in their day-to-day life. This is the first in a wider series of workshops shaped by EV drivers, with future sessions covering public charging experience, the second-hand EV market, affordability and accessibility. As soon as I saw EV misinformation, I had to contact them. So I replied, "That's big of you all to own up. Now stop giving it out and creating instant buyer's remorse. Just let the salespeople do their job and watch EV sales grow organically." A chap called Rob Vowles replied to me, EV Club and Association Liaison for the UK and Ireland, LGBT+, Disability and Diversity Champion. "Let's help make electric vehicles accessible, plus enjoyable for all." Well, to be fair, unless he's going to convert them all to a V8 Mustang, I don't know how he's going to do that. He's got his work cut out, really, hasn't he? So he replied to me, and if I'm honest, he got right on my nerves straight away from the first line of his reply. I'm trying not to grit my teeth when I read this. Barry. If EV adoption relied on car salespeople doing their job, half the country would still think Bluetooth works via moonlight and positive vibes. And I just thought, it's the same old EV mouthpiece, arrogance, condescending and insults coming across. I don't know whether he's been in a sales department environment or not, whether he's ever sold vehicles, whether he's ever been involved in garages or selling cars in any way, shape or form whatsoever. But the next bit, most sales teams aren't EV educators or even vehicle enthusiasts. They're chasing quotas. I'll give him that, yeah. Commissions. And the dream of a long lunch, plus the traditional tea and cigarette circuit. Well, it's coffee. Get your facts straight, mate. That's not a character flaw. That's the business model. Is it really? That's the business model, is it, Rob? Okay. You haven't got a clue. If accurate, unbiased EV advice came standard with every dealership, we wouldn't need an EV buddy program. Oh, for goodness sake, they even call them stupid names. An EV buddy program? You're kidding me. How long did it take you to come up with that? An EV buddy program. You know, scuba diving. Oxygen tank runs out. Somebody's got some oxygen left and your buddy breathe all the way to the surface. It's a lifesaver. Buddy program. And I wouldn't be spending my evenings myth busting at events on socials and in LinkedIn threads like this one. I do the same, mate, and I'm correcting all the lies that are told about EVs, because I know very well if EV sales are allowed to continue like this, it will kill EV sales, and in turn it will kill garages and the motor trade in the UK in general. That's why I'm doing it, nothing else, just to correct all your rubbish. And let's be honest, plenty of salespeople, not all, know about as much about the cars they sell as they do about assembling a flat pack bed frame. Well, I have to say, V8 engine, work of art. My first car, I took the engine out of it. I wasn't a trained mechanic, took the engine out of it, and I took it out in my dad's garage. It was an angle iron frame, angle iron like so, with a strengthener across. I lifted the engine out with a block of tackle from the first piece of angle iron that was a strengthener across the roof. And after I'd taken the engine out, the strengthener across the roof was like that. So when I went to put it back in, I had to reverse it out a bit or push it out a bit and do it off the next one. And they kind of almost collapsed the roof of my parents' garage. And I rebuilt the engine, had the crankshaft reground, new pistons, rebored, ground the valves in. And I did all that without anybody really telling me what to do. And over the years, I've done just about everything on cars. Fit sunroofs, found electrical faults. And when I was sales manager at Mercedes-Benz and there was any electrical problems, they actually, a couple of lads used to come and get me out of the sales office to help them or to talk through it with them. Because I used to ask them questions. Well, if it does this, what do you think? And we used to go through a logical process of ruling out what they think it was. And one day, one of the lads, really nice lad, he thought it was the instrument cluster that was faulty. And I said it wasn't. He took the instrument cluster out, and it wasn't that. So we ordered a couple of £1,000 instrument cluster. He took it all out the dashboard and so on, fitted a new one, and it wasn't that. Who's going to pay for that? Not only can I assemble flat packs, like, in fact, I'll send you a link to my electric desk that came flat packed, and I assembled it and made a video of it. Assembling a flat pack bed frame. They skim a brochure, parrot whatever the rep told them, and hope nothing collapses when the customer gets it home. Well, if you knew anything about flat pack bed frames, you'd know that it's already collapsed, and that's how the customer gets it home. They build it at home. They don't build it in IKEA. Okay, my teeth are clenching. So no, leave it to the salespeople isn't a strategy. It's the origin story of why we're still correcting wild EV myths in 2026, more than a decade after BEVs actually arrived on the scene in a meaningful way. So Rob here, misinformation. He thinks that salesmen have been giving out misinformation. If they were giving out misinformation, they're not going to say, oh, this shit, these. You don't want one of those. No, mate. No, you don't want. And then the misinformation would be that they're shit. And this guy has to, I'm still not laughing at this. And this guy's EV buddy program would be actually saying, no, actually, they're not that good. No, I know he told you that they do 300 miles on a charge and, but no, they don't. They only do 200 miles, and that's if you're lucky. That's if it's not cold and you're not using a heater. So that part of the argument is laughable. So no, leave it to the salesperson isn't a strategy. Now, as you can imagine, you got on my tits with that. My reply, because leaving it to obnoxious EV mouthpieces to extol their virtues is working out so well for you. P.S. I have a YouTube channel dedicated to showing people how to use their Bluetooth. So, you managed to get on my nerves again. Barry, I absolutely love it. Crying emoji. A YouTube channel teaching people how to use Bluetooth actually proves my point better than anything I could have written. If sales teams were nailing EV education or tech in general, you wouldn't need to spend your evenings explaining how to pair a phone. And I wouldn't be spending mine correcting myths about batteries exploding in the rain. With both filling gaps, the industry left wide open, just in very different corners of the internet. Since you're clearly passionate about helping people understand their tech, why not get involved properly? Now, I thought this was good, because there does need to be some discourse between people like this who don't know what they're talking about and me. Thank you. And the speakers, the guest speakers, people who say things that aren't true and get away with it because they're not actually salespeople. Because if salespeople said what they said, they'd be out of a job and possibly even in prison. Certainly in court, and certainly in court, fined and paying restitution. Why not get involved properly? The event itself is free. And if you fancy joining EVA England, just RSVP through the EV Group's Nexus, and I'll personally send you a £10 first year membership code. Now, I actually fancied this idea because I did want to ask a couple of questions in the workshop about EV misinformation. But then he just had to go that little bit further. If nothing else, you can teach all of us in the room how to connect their phones properly. So he's already saying there that they ain't going to learn anything about electric vehicles off me, but I might be able to tell them how to pair the phone. Seething probably doesn't describe how I was feeling. The reason I have a YouTube channel explaining Bluetooth is because me and my sales staff were paid and targeted to sell cars, and explaining Bluetooth to people cost us money. You get the sack for not selling cars and nothing for explaining Bluetooth. Before YouTube came out, I used to give my customers a CD, which I had made myself to explain it. You see, it takes longer to explain how Bluetooth works than it does to sell a car. And also, if someone comes in the showroom with unrealistic expectations that he's heard from some idiot journalist or lobbyist group about an EV, like you'll save £1,500 a year running one, that customer will be trouble. Your satisfaction score, every customer's sent a questionnaire after you've handed a car over. It used to be one by Mercedes-Benz and one by your actual firm. If you got marked down, you would be up in the general manager's office. I got a great satisfaction score. This guy came to pick a car up, a Mercedes-Benz. He was arrogant, he was obnoxious, I didn't like him all the way through the sales process, and I'd actually asked my boss, he was going to buy a car, but I didn't want to deal with him. I asked my boss if he could get one of the other salesmen to take over, because I didn't like him that much. He was obnoxious. Anyway, my boss wouldn't let me. In fact, he couldn't believe it. And he said, like, Baz, cowboy up, do your job, that's what you get paid for, and you're going to earn £300 or £400 commission. You want to give £300 or £400 commission away, do you? Yes, gladly. Guy comes to pick his car up, and he was there with his wife. His wife was lovely. Far too good for him. And we're talking, and I'm explaining stuff, and his wife asked me a question. I turned to answer her, and this guy said, "Get on with your knitting." Okay, so I told him what I thought of him. Now, it's not the best. I'll give you that. It's not the best way to hand over a new car. And it went downhill from there on. And he wrote a shitty letter into my boss. And my boss wrote him one back. And he said, "I've been in a job for 30 years. And never, ever has one of my salesmen come to me and asked me if I would give this customer who was buying a car to another salesman because he didn't want to deal with you." To be fair, my boss took my side. So your satisfaction score, explaining Bluetooth, stuff like that, is basically for your satisfaction score. I'll tell you another instance. I was going out for a meal one night, and there was a chap coming to pick up a Mercedes-Benz, and he'd got every extra on it, ordered every extra. We used to finish at 6 o'clock, and I rang him and I said, "Right, just to let you know, I have to be away from here at 6 o'clock. I'm going out tonight. So is it possible you could get here for 4 o'clock so I've got enough time to run through all the specification of the vehicle and how things work?" And he said yes. And guess what? He turned up at 5 to 6. Some people who buy Mercedes are like that. Lots of them are lovely. Some people are obnoxious. So I went through the car, racing through it, and sat-nav had only just come out. So I explained the sat-nav, how to use it, and I turned to him and I said, "Right, well, thanks very much. I've got to go." And he said, "Could you just explain the sat-nav to me again?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't. But if you come back tomorrow at 9 o'clock, I will do. As I said to you on the phone, I'm going out tonight and I'm already late." And that's when I got the idea of making, rather than me spending all this time telling people how their sat-nav worked, I made one video. And then I burnt it onto DVDs and CDs. And then I gave my customers. So while the other guys were outside explaining how the sat-nav works, how the Bluetooth works, I was inside selling cars. Do it once, CD. So again, don't talk to me about how to treat customers and what you should do, because I've forgotten more than you will ever know about it. Your satisfaction score will take a knock and you will get told off for that too. As I said, you lot are the problem, not the solution. You are creating buyer's remorse before they even get behind the wheel. And that's partly because anyone involved in promoting EVs does not know how to sell cars. Their only fallback option is to give stuff away. Grants, tax, knock some more off, get a grant to help sell used EVs, not sell them how they should be, and call people names who still don't want to buy them. In my 50 years in the motor trade, I have honestly never seen so much absolute tripe and vitriol from anyone like I've seen from the EV shills. You are doing more for ICE sales than Bob Geldof did for Brexit. Then I answered his tongue-in-cheek comment about rain being bad for EV batteries. But he just walked straight into it. P.S. Rain just disables EV batteries. It takes 8 inches of water to make them explode. Crane emoji. Rob's replied, "Barry, you said EV advocates don't know how to sell cars. So how come at every public event we participate in, people come back after speaking with us, not confused, not overwhelmed, but genuinely interested, asking better questions and openly rethinking the myths they walked in with? We aren't giving them fairy tales. We are not promising £1,500 a year. or magic batteries. Well, actually you are. And your main speaker is the worst person for telling people that they can save £1,500. It's actually £1,600 a year for him. They will save £1,600 a year. So yes, you do. No argument. Yes, you do. And so do Auto Trader. And so do the Transport Department. The EVA, I'm sure the EVA have actually retweeted Auto Trader's claim. So yes, you do. No, you don't. Yes, you do. We explain the good and the bad. No, you don't. In plain language. No, you don't. Without sensationalism that's been floating around the industry for years. No, you don't. You make sensationalist claims. They all do. And funnily enough, when you treat people like adults, give them facts and help them understand how the tech actually works, they don't get buyer's remorse. They get clarity. What a load of tripe. If that's not knowing how to sell, then maybe the definition of selling needs an update.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because when you agree a sale, it's a deal, and a deal is a mutually beneficial agreement between two or more parties. Selling an EV is not a mutually beneficial deal. In fact, it doesn't benefit anybody, because the dealer will more than likely be losing money and the customer will lose money too. It is not mutually beneficial. It's mutually assured destruction.
Condescending again, because what we're doing is working.
Well, I'm sorry, but it's not. Fleet News, Consumer Confidence in Used EVs, Almost Non-Existent, by Gareth Roberts. That's today, the 26th of January 2026. Just 3% of drivers would have confidence in buying a used electric vehicle, EV, new research suggests. Whatever you're doing, Rob, it's not working. And it won't work. And it never will work. I hope that clarifies it for you.
People leave informed, confident, and able to make decisions based on reality, not rumours. You've got decades of ancient experience in the motor trade. Ancient! Yeah, I'm ancient. I was the first one to make a website with videos on. I had an interactive webcam that got me a job offer from Beverly Hills Porsche and helped me sell cars to people from all over the world.
That'll remind me of Beverly Hills forever. Thank you.
And all over the UK. Ancient experience. Car videos. Guess who did that first? Bluetooth, CDs. Guess who did that first? Making video test drives for my customers. And as I say, the right car, the right music, on a nice day, even a bad day, it just makes you forget your troubles. Which, you laugh at this, but the first car I sold, the first car I videoed, I'm still getting paid off from YouTube from the video I made 15 years ago. I'm still getting alimony from a Peugeot 206 cc convertible. Ancient experience. I can respect that. It doesn't sound like you do, to be honest. And it doesn't sound like you've got much respect for me. But we've got thousands of conversations with real drivers who just wanted someone to take time to explain things properly. You have never been in a showroom. You don't know what you're talking about. You're welcome to join us at any event, anytime. You might be surprised how much people appreciate honesty over hard sell. Me hard sell. One of my bosses said to me, are you independently wealthy? I noticed that you don't push customers for sales. No, I never have done. And yet I've always sold the most cars. So why do you think that is? Do you know what hard sell gets you? Like the Pendle system, it gets you buyer's remorse. It gets you sales at the weekend, cockers on Monday. When they've had, sometimes they'll sign up just to get away. There's a local garage to us. My cousin and her husband, who had stage 4 kidney failure, they went to look at new cars. Not far from here. And salesman showed them around the car. They had a test drive and said, okay, thanks, we'll have a think about it. The salesman got up, locked the showroom door and said, while you're thinking about it, I'll be in my office. Give me a shout. That was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I said to her, why didn't you ring me? I'd have been there in 5 minutes. And she said, because I know what would have happened. Now this is where it got confusing. Barry, since we're all talking elephants today, where did elephants come from? Your rain, battery, fire claims are a perfect example of what happens when someone grabs the tail and confidently describes the whole animal. Well, I imagine that's because an elephant's got a small tail. If you just felt the tail, you might think it's about that big, and it's not. But I don't do that, you see. EVs don't shut down in rain. They don't explode in 8 inches of water. And if they did, Norway would have sunk by now, and Scotland would be a restricted zone. What is true is that EV fires are incredibly rare. So rare that when one does happen, it becomes a headline. Petrol fires happen constantly, so nobody notices. That's the difference between data and anecdotes. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you to look at the whole elephant. Has an elephant got a lithium battery that explodes? Not just the bit you've been holding for 50 years. You condescending twat. If you're genuinely open to seeing how the tech behaves in the real world, not in memes, not in showroom folklore, join the next Teams workshop. No pressure, no sales pitch, just real drivers sharing real experience. So I've had several EVs, I've driven loads of EVs, I've got an EV which I use daily, just real drivers sharing real experience. Oh, I've forgotten another bit, and I know a bit about selling vehicles. You might find the elephant looks very different when you're not only holding the tail. And then Ewan, I love your elephant post, golden, heart. Not so fast, Rob. You stick hold of the elephant. I like them, but I don't want one of my own. And it looks like your need is greater than mine. One, I sent him this news clip about a Tesla owner driving through inclement weather and getting a bill for £17,000 for his damaged battery. Tesla wouldn't pay for it because he said it was an act of God and that he shouldn't have gone out in nasty weather. They argued that, yes, his battery had got water in it, but it wasn't their fault. It was heavy rains. So that rain disabled the battery. So yes, not an anecdote, a story that made all the papers, even the EV papers. Tesla catches fire in a garage after flooding from Hurricane Helene. 8 inches of water, captured on the house CCTV cameras, car explodes, burns the garage down. Not an anecdote, fact, news. EVs make chemicals that will keep burning underwater. They make their own. So even if you immerse them in water, guess what? They keep burning. This lady reversing a jet ski into a lake. All of a sudden, car catches fire. Tries to get out, can't open the doors. Fortunately, her husband saw what was happening. He opened the door, got her out. The car went back into the lake on fire and continued to burn underwater. So again, that's a fact. It's happened. It could happen in future. It's not a myth. Maybe unlikely to happen, but it has happened. My reply, P.S. I don't get attached to anything, and certainly not for 50 years.
Guy told me one time, don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat.
Appreciate honesty over hard sell. That's a laugh. You clearly don't know me. How many EVs have you sold at your events? Never answered me to tell me how many EVs he's sold. Morning, Barry. Quoting ABC7 hurricane stories to prove EVs are dangerous in the UK is like warning British drivers about moose collisions because it happened in Canada. The actual UK data shows BEVs are 20 to 80 times less likely to catch fire than petrol or diesel cars. honestjohn.co.uk. EV fires burn longer, but they're vanishingly rare. ICE fires happen daily and barely make the news. If you want to talk real risk, let's look at the 15,000 vehicle fires reported in the UK last year. Less than 1% involved anything electric, and that includes e-bikes, e-scooters and mobility scooters, not just cars. So if you're holding on to the elephant's tail and shouting fire, maybe it's time to step back and look at the whole animal. Still think you'd benefit from the team session. Those speakers will probably be discussing actual UK data, not Florida flood stories. So they're ignoring that because it suits them. They're cherry picking. They might touch on the 1,237 ICE vehicle fires per month versus the handful of cheap, poorly managed micro-mobility battery fires, not cars. And somewhere in there, possibly the one EV car fire you saw shared 600 times on social media. Winking emoji. My reply, Rob, you seem to have a thing about elephants. Let's stick to EVs. Perhaps I should tell you about all my A-Class orders, this is Mercedes-Benz A-Class, that were cancelled when one turned over doing the Moose test. And Mercedes-Benz had to re-engineer them, and they lost money on each car because of the re-engineering, because of what it cost. Just because it didn't happen here doesn't mean it won't. P.S. It was a moose, not an elephant. So what happened? This Mercedes-Benz A-Class was doing an elk test. I'm not sure whether it was the chairman of Saab got killed when he hit an elk and it came to the screen and crushed him. And there's a test. They do this elk test, which is basically you're doing 70 miles an hour and then turn right, kind of without braking, to swerve to hit a moose. And when they did this, the A-Class went on two wheels and turned over. When they re-engineered it, we were all taken to a racing track, and I sat in the passenger seat next to Tim Harvey, racing driver, who went on to drive this A-Class at an inflatable lorry, turn right, and miraculously we stayed upright. And then I got to do it myself. It was great fun. The car used to brake itself and allow you to steer without turning over. I was sales manager at Mercedes-Benz, and we had a load of A-Class sold. And as I say, this test didn't happen in the UK, it happened abroad. But it was reported in all the motor trade magazines. So yes, it gets over here. And yes, you have to address it, because my customers were ringing every day asking for the A-Class deposits back. Now, I tried my best to reassure them. And I actually said, in the end, I just said to them, look, If you see an elk on the M6, don't try and avoid it. Run over it, because the new A-Class is as safe as the much bigger E-Class. And you'll be fine. Guess what? They still wanted the deposits back. Even after that, they still wanted the deposits back. There's no pleasing some people. EVs are being banned from underground car parks. School buses are catching fire. EVs are catching fire, charging. Garages are burning down. Houses are burning down. More and more being reported. So don't be making light of misinformation. P.S. I run an EV and I've also sold a brand new one this morning. I don't hate EVs, I hate liars and hypocrites. It would seem that promoting EVs attracts this type of person. Yep, never happens in the UK. Plus, I've never heard of firefighters being off sick for 6 months after fighting a nice fire, or dying from the fumes like they did in Spain, and only being able to walk a few yards after they've inhaled the toxic smoke from an EV fire, and oily substance starts coming out of the skin. These are documented cases of firefighters. One could only walk about 80 yards afterwards. A firefighter, do you know what they have to do? Do you know how they train? Do you know what fitness tests they have to pass in order to become a fireman? Do you know what they have to do and how long they have to hold the breath in the tests, where they have to take the breathing apparatus off, pass it through a confined space, go through themselves, put the breathing apparatus back on, and after that he inhales toxic smoke from an EV and he can only walk 80 yards.
We've never had anyone off related to any type of lithium ion. This is the first. Those 4 are the first.
Those 4 Sacramento firefighters fighting a new battle, being treated for exposure to a Tesla battery fire last April.
A very low-lying white cloud, as it was described by those members, kind of came across them. They immediately had a metallic taste in their mouth. And one of the chemicals in those batteries, once it hits water, it turns to an acid.
Similar to the Southern California EV fire, the batteries, which broke apart on impact of the crash, reignited on the tow truck. The 4 firefighters did not have on their breathing apparatus since the fire was out and they were in cleanup mode.
These EVs are something that is new to us, I'd say. And we really need to look at what's the best practice on fighting these fires and not becoming a victim ourselves.
And Michelle, how are those 4 firefighters doing?
Yeah, of course, they're still not working. They're actually being treated with an experimental IV infusion, which they hope will try to release those heavy metal toxins that's in their bloodstream and in their lungs. But because this is all so new and there's still studies being done, they don't know if there will be any permanent damage or not in their bodies or in their lungs.
That's pretty scary. Yeah, again, it's just also new. We have to wait and see, I guess. Michelle, thank you so much.
I dread to think what's happened to these 3 here we goes trying to put an EV out that was in thermal runaway. This is in the UK. Outside the house it was charging, it set on fire, burnt all the front of the house. 3 guys were trying to put it out with hose pipes. Toxic smoke pouring off it. You can play down these things as much as you want, but they do happen, and they're happening more and more often. I think that morning I made a video, a test drive with a Leap Motors C10, and then I took it to show my friend because she was looking for a new car and it was perfect for her. It was an EV. I hate EVs that much. I put one of my best friends into an EV. She has a detached garage and that's where it will be charging, not right next to her house. Final message to Rob Viles. Well, I joined and registered, but sadly you didn't send me a link. I tried registering twice for this webinar. They sent me a link saying what questions you want to ask about EV misinformation. And the questions I wanted to ask was to Colin, how did you calculate your £1,600 saving on an EV when depreciation is in the thousands? And also the Climate Intelligence Unit has stated that the UK has done their ZEV mandate target. Once again, they said they'd done it last year, and I asked them how they calculated that we'd hit it when the SMMT said we'd missed, and it had also cost them billions of pounds, £5.5 billion, to try and hit it by giving EVs away. Those are the only two bits of EV myth information I wanted clearing up. They didn't send me a link, so I couldn't join the webinar. I couldn't ask the question. I honestly didn't want to cause trouble. It's just not me. I wanted an answer. Why? How? Your workings out. Why can you tell people that we've done the ZEV mandate when everybody else says we haven't? That's what I wanted to clarify. That EV myth information. They didn't send me a link. Rob, who thought I'd be able to teach them about Bluetooth, you know, they missed out on that, didn't they? I could have told them all how to connect their Bluetooth. I sent this message to him. Well, I joined and registered, but sadly you didn't send me a link. Rob, for all his gusto in his earlier messages, looks like he's not got the memory of an elephant, but a goldfish. And he's not replied to me. Very, very sad, honestly. Very sad. I feel sorry for them. So, in closing and summary, the EVA conned me out of £10. If they'll stoop to such lengths just to get £10 off me, imagine what lengths they'd stoop to get you to buy an EV. Don't bear thinking about, does it? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.